The French presidential elections will take place in April 2017, and already the debate is getting extremely heated, with France split, not so much on traditional lines of old conservatives versus the socialists, but with new players entering the field, as they did some years ago, and provoking a very serious debate as to the future of France. Now, France is a country that has traditionally had a very strong radical left intelligentsia. This intelligentsia began to decline in the 80s and 90s, and we are now confronting a situation in France which is not too different from what has happened in other parts of Europe, and of course, most recently, the United States with the election of Donald Trump. The situation is as follows: that the rise of the semi-fascist or neo-fascist Marine Le Pen and the National Front Party, waging a very successful campaign in terms of trying to win broader support, is now leading the polls as the single largest party. The Socialist Party is in total and complete crisis, with François Hollande's personal rating down to 4%. The Conservatives have been battling till recently as to who their candidate is going to be, and have chosen the right-wing conservative François Fillon, who is openly denounced all the social reforms that have taken place in relation to sexuality, gay marriages, etc. With me to discuss some of this is Cédric Durand, French economist and intellectual who teaches at the University of Paris 13. Cédric, welcome. Good to have you with us. Just give me first an account of the French Socialist Party. And let's start off by discussing why Hollande is hated so much. After all, many other socialist leaders have behaved in the same way, but the hatred for him seems to have an edge on it. Why is this?
I think there is two main reasons. The first reason is that he has completely betrayed what he explained before, and in two very precise ways. The first way was that he engaged to be the enemy of finance, which he didn't engage at all. And the other thing is that he explained that he will renegotiate the Euro framework, which he didn't. And well, so the left was not happy with that. But the right of the party was not happy either, because he didn't succeed in his right way of implementing these reforms. The unemployment, which was his key objectives, his main objective was to diminish unemployment, and it has grown up during the 4 years of his mandate, and it is just right now stagnating. So there was, on the one hand, an ideological failure, ideological betrayal, but on the other hand, there was also an inability to obtain any substantial results, which could reassure even people from the center-right.
So basically what you're saying, that he let down the bourgeoisie, which was hoping for what they call reforms, but which are, as we know, in fact, regressions of moving back, giving more space to private enterprise, etc., making the playing field in their favor. That he did not do. And then he also let down the working class by not doing anything for them, with unemployment reaching astronomical levels. And thirdly, he effectively, even the mild program he had, he departed from it. So, Cédric, what did he do? I mean, basically, it just became a question of exercising power.
Yeah, in fact, there has been three events organizing his presidency. The first one was on the progressive side, was on social reforms in terms of gay marriage and rights for gay people. And he has supported the fight for this right, to some extent, against the right. That was the only moment when there has been a right-left divide during his presidency. The two other moments were one moment when he tried to become a leader in front of terrorism and so on. So he played that, and he had some moderate success on that. But the most profound thing is that he failed on these economic and social issues, and he confronted very harshly the labor movement with huge demonstration last year and huge public support for this demonstration, which he ignored completely. And he passed the labor law against the popular discontent and against the mobilization of his own party and the basis of his own party. But on the side of the bourgeoisie, he gave them a lot. He diminished the tax rolls for the employers, he deregulates the labor law, and he diminished some social tax also. So he gave them about 70 billion euros. So that's a year. So that's something
that's
very
important. That's a lot,
important.
but they still wanted more.
Yes, they still wanted
As
more.
always.
Yes, yes. And they still wanted more, and they push their agenda more and more, and that's also the reason why the right now is so harsh, because Hollande opened the way for them, for their program, to radicalize. And no, the Fillon's program is a very radical program. People in France say that he's a kind of new Thatcher, the Iron Man, you know.
François Fillon.
François Fillon.
We'll come to him in a minute. Let's just stick with the Socialist Party. So within the Socialist Party, there is effectively no serious alternative to Hollande at all.
No. Usually, the Socialist Party was on the economic issue to some extent on the left, and on the cultural issue also to some extent on the left, anti-racism and so on. But in this government, there has been two prominent figures in Hollande's government. One was Emmanuel Macron, which is a former banker from Rothschild. And he went his way, but he's really a person which is the opposite of what people from the Socialist Party thought that was socialism. And the other person is Manuel Valls. And Manuel Valls used to be very unpopular within the party because he's a very...
This is the prime minister.
The prime minister, right? Because he's a very authoritarian guy and a very Islamophobic guy and so on. And these two persons are right now the most prominent figures of the center-left. They occupy all the media space for the center-left. François Hollande, in fact, has neutralized the left of his own party. He was able to neutralize it, and he opened the way for a radicalization of his own party towards the center-right on authoritarian issue on one hand, and on the other hand, on economic issue.
The main challenge, though, to the established system, the extreme center, I call it, this system is coming from the extreme right and the National Front of Marine Le Pen. How would you characterize this party and its dominance today in large parts of France? And what are the dangers that she might actually win?
That's a serious danger. There is a serious option that she can win the election. Her father was a real fascist. Le Pen, Jean-Marie Le Pen was a real fascist.
He was a fascist.
He was a fascist. And she has his name. So she doesn't need to play that game at all. You just have to say Le Pen, and people understand that she don't like Muslims, that she don't like leftists, and all the far right is behind her because of this name, which is a meaning in itself. That's the first thing. But on the other hand, she played that because of that, she doesn't appear so much like that. She softened a lot her discourse on racism, and of course she's anti-immigrant, but she's not moving too much on this side. She's moving a lot on the social issues. And on that, she has a completely different orientation than his father. His father was a Thatcherite. He was a very harsh neoliberal. She's not at all like that. She's using left argument in favor of public services, in favor of social protection, and so on. And because of that, she's gaining more and more appeal from working class people, and she's becoming the first party mobilizing this part of the population. So that's very dangerous for the left. We, in the left, have a serious debate about that. Because on the one hand, this party is relatively small, not so much organized. There is a lot of violent people from the party confronting the left in the street and so on. There is not this occur. But that's not the main story right now in France. So on the one hand, you can imagine that one option could be that this party just metamorphosing itself, becoming a far-right populist party, but not really a fascist one, not too dangerous and so on. But on the other hand, we know that the far-right radicalized when it comes to power. We know the people which are very close to her, part of the people which are very far-right people with a very strong fascist background. And so it's very dangerous if they took the power because of their own transformation in power, not so much because of what they are doing in this very moment. Ideologically, when she talks on TV right now, she's not so much on the right in comparison with Donald Trump, for example. She's not saying such harsh things as Trump used to say. Her language is very much soft. But that.
So she on French television,
yes.
Marine Le Pen appears to the left of Donald Trump. Yes.
Without doubt.
Without any doubt.
Without any doubt.
That's very interesting. So she's deliberately, basically what she's going for is to unite as many people behind her banners and says, we are the ones who will push through measures to defend the French workers. Exactly. None of the other parties can do that. That's what she's saying.
Yeah. She said that she's defending the people of France. So on the domestically working people life against neoliberalism. She speaks about the program of the right as a program of social destruction. That's a quote yesterday. And in the meantime, she is, of course, mobilizing on the usual basis of the far right against migrants.
Yeah, but Cedric, Marine Le Pen's Islamophobia has been mimicked by all the mainstream politicians now, without exception, including people from the far left. And that is the worrying thing, that she doesn't need to make it a big issue because it has become a big issue. I remember watching her being interviewed on French television not so long ago, and someone said to her, "You've been a bit quiet lately." And she said, what need is there for me to speak when they're all moving in my direction? We've had Hollande's remarks. Manuel Valls is, of course, very explicitly Islamophobic and semi-racist about the presence of black people in France. Mélenchon's position on this is bad. I guess the Greens are about all right. But this is a problem with the whole of French society. But it is a big, big victory for her, which means that she's really shifted the battleground to the right, and many of them will now fight on her terms.
Of course, the bombings of last years have exacerbated the problem. There has been an open Islamophobia which was semi-hidden in large part of the political spectrum and the society, which exploded, opened up in the aftermath of that. And Marine Le Pen was in position to say, you know, I told you that. I told you that.
She didn't go beyond.
Yeah.
Let's discuss her main rivals on the right, because of course things could change. We don't know what's going to happen, but it seems as if though it will be a right-wing election finale between her and Françoise Fillon, who has just been elected the leader of the French Conservatives, to fight her, which will be a very interesting situation in France and will put a lot of strain both on socialist voters and voters to their left as to what they're going to do. So what exactly has been happening inside French conservatism? They've rejected Sarkozy, they've rejected Juppé, and they've gone for François Fillon. Why?
They rejected Sarkozy first because he was too much discredited by all his
corruption
scandals and erratic behavior and so on. So he was not, the French bourgeoisie was never very comfortable with Sarkozy. As far as he was, you know, able to gain momentum and to gather political benefits, they were happy, but they were not convinced by him from the very beginning.
They found him slightly distasteful.
Exactly. On the other hand, Juppé played 100% the game against Sarkozy. All this campaign was against Sarkozy and showing that he was responsible, that he was more open on social issues than Sarkozy, than the far right. In fact, he waged a campaign for the second round of the presidential election. And what occurred is that people, they heard what Juppé said against Sarkozy, but they picked Fillon.
Why?
Why? Because Fillon were able to propose them a radical conservative program on social issues, very conservative, very against the gay marriage, very against
abortion?
Yeah, not against abortion, but confused about abortion, against women's rights. And in the meantime, he was more radical than Juppé on a neoliberal program. His program really has been compared with Thatcher's program, and for good reasons. For example, he wants to suppress any maximal labor time. So no limits on labor time, only the European maximum, which is 48 hours. He also wants to suppress, to dismantle the social security system, except for long-term disease. So that's really a radical shift from what is currently the social security system in France. He promised to suppress 500,000 posts of public servants.
Sector.
Yes, so that's huge again. So he's very, he has a very harsh right-wing program, and the right people on the right were very mobilized on their own program.
So Marine Le Pen, on these issues of social issues, of public sector, state intervention, is to the left of François Fillon.
Without doubt, without doubt. In fact, their electorate is overlapping on women's rights issues, xenophobia, and so on. But on social issues, they are completely opposed. And I think that François Fillon's social basis is very well organized, very mobilized. It's traditional French conservative bourgeoisie of the regions, of the province. But it's not so wide. It's not so wide. Everybody went to the polls during this primary, but he has not so much political space beyond that, because working class people won't be appealed by him at all. And people from the core cities will be more liberal, and he's not a liberal at all on many issues. So they won't be comfortable with him.
But Cedric, you say that the primaries showed that he's only attractive to a minority. This, of course, is probably true, but the figure of the number of people who voted in the primaries of the Conservative Party in France, you said was 4 million.
Yes, that's a huge success for them.
It's a huge success. Here in Britain, we had 500,000 people mobilized in electing the left candidate Jeremy Corbyn, but we thought 500,000 was fantastic for a primary, but 4 million people turned out to vote for Fillon.
Yeah. Not all for Fillon, but yes,
but
two-thirds of them for
of course,
Fillon.
some voted for Juppé.
So that's a huge mobilization of the right, and that's symptomatic of the rejection of François Hollande. Right-wing people are radicalized against Hollande, and which is very strange is that they are not radicalized by him being too far to the left, because in fact he was not too far to the left,
no.
But just to be to opening, to legitimizing their issues and not be able to push their argument to the end. I think that there is a kind of confidence regained by the right. Even François Hollande recognized that we need to deregulate more the labor market, we need to make more austerity and so on. So we are right on that, but he's not able to make the job.
So we might have a situation that Marine Le Pen is one candidate in the second round of the French elections next April. François Fillon is the other candidate. And, like the left did when it voted for Chirac against Papa Le Pen, They said it's holding our nose, like many people said in the States. We held our nose to vote for Hillary. But how many of those people who did that in the past will do that for Fillon again? And if his position on social cultural issues like homosexuality, equal rights, etc., is bad, lots of those people might not turn out to vote for him. So from that point of view alone, Juppé might have been a better bet, don't you think?
Yes, I think you're right on that. Juppé would have been a better bet for the second round of the election. But still, I think that in case of Fillon, Marine Le Pen second round, a big part of center-left people will vote for Fillon, even if he's reactionary on this issue. Of course, much less than Juppé, but I think a significant part. Because Le Pen names
is just enough.
Is still synonymous of fascism.
But hang on, Cedric. We've seen that in a number of countries in the former Eastern Europe, Serbia, Croatia, Hungary, even to a certain extent, Poland, the rise of, or the Ukraine, to mention another name, many of those, the successors of those, the political successors of people who collaborated with the Third Reich and Nazism during the Second World War have been winning elections. So it's, in France, that feeling might be strong, but you know, one can't forget that a majority of France accepted the Vichy regime. It wasn't a minority. It was the resistance that was in a minority. A majority of France said yes to Hitler. I mean, the documentaries are quite shocking, some of them. So is it that embedded in today's France, this sort of faux anti-fascism, which, you know, we can make of it what we will, that they will really say we won't vote for Le Pen, or will they say, well, other people are doing it. The Americans have done it with Trump. She's not as bad as Trump. The Italians have had Fini as deputy prime minister in lineal descent from Mussolini. The Eastern Europeans are doing it. Why should we stick out?
No, you're right. There is a significant risk that Marine Le Pen wins the election. But as far as the past is able to inform us, people during the election, in the second round, most of the time, always even, are blocking the National Front. For example, they were the first party in the last regional election, but they were not able to win a single region. Why? Because on the second round, everybody voted for the center-right, and in a few cases, the center-left. But
okay, we shall see. The choice, but you know, France is being offered between, if this is the final choice between Le Pen and François Fillon, isn't such a huge choice, but anyway, we shall see. But let's now just discuss briefly the collapse, really, of the left ever since the French Communist Party, which used to be a real solid bloc of the French working class voters, of the poor. I mean, you know, whatever one's criticism of this party, there was a time when it was a completely solid bloc and big intervention in French culture through newspapers, magazines, publishing houses. That all disappeared in the 90s, like cotton wool, blown in the wind. So the Communist Party collapsed, and of course lots of people who voted for them might be voting for Le Pen, or probably will. And the Communist Party is now a tiny rump, usually consisting of notables in the smaller towns and cities of France, but of course they still have a lot of property, the old party headquarters, and they have a small base. And they have now united with Mélenchon to have a united left, with him running as the presidential candidate. I mean, he has done that before. Will there be any difference this time?
yes, there will be some differences. The first is in a stronger position in the media. in the country even, because people know him better. He has made his own personality stronger in the political field. It's more clear where his positions, and I think that in the depths of the society, his position is stronger. But in the meantime, his organizational position is weaker, because he was not able to gather forces from the left. And finally, they join him, but just from the outside. There is no articulation at all for the moment between the Mélenchon's campaign, which is the Mélenchon and a few persons, and the traditional organization of the left. And even Mélenchon, he is considering that the other organizations from the left are a weight for him. So he's playing the game very lonely, and he's not helping at all to build a common ground. But there is this kind of ambiguity. We are really in between, in a moment where it's not clear if his choice will be sufficient to create a new political space which needs some elements of destruction, or if these elements of destruction will be, at the end, completely destructive for the left. That's a big, a big try.
So difficult to predict.
Yeah, difficult to predict.
And in terms of his presence on television and in the media in general, it's much bigger than it was last time?
Yeah, in one sense, yes, because he decided to run for the presidency already.
Before everyone.
Before everyone. So he was able to occupy the space, to be here. We don't know who will be the candidate for the center left. And it's very imprevisible, imprevisible to decide who will be this candidate. But Mélenchon is here, and he's organizing his campaign, he's positioning himself. So that's one element of stability. To some limited extent, it's a kind of reflect of Le Pen, in the sense that these two candidates
they are the polls.
They are the polls which are already installed at the beginning of the process.
Cedric, France, of course, doesn't exist on its own. It's part of the European Union. The French leadership has played a big part, historically, in setting up this union and in being part of its offensives against small countries like Greece, like Portugal, like Spain, etc. What do you think is the general feeling in France regarding the European Union? I mean, let me put it more bluntly. If an incoming French president, to gain some more popularity, whoever it is, Fillon, Le Pen, Mélenchon, whoever, decides to have a referendum in France on whether France should stay in the European Union or get out, what do you think will be the result and why?
For exit, without doubt.
Exit, without any doubt.
Yes. In the polls, there has been some polls in June which explain that the hostility towards the European Union was above 60% in France. That's one country where it's the highest after Greece. So that's very, very strong opposition to the European Union. That not only the far right is against the European Union, but also part of the left has moved its position in the recent period due to the euro crisis, the treatment of the Greek government, and so on. So there is no doubt that there is a huge majority, if the question is this question, that will vote against the European Union. Why? There is also very concrete reason for that. You know that the problem for French people is that their neighbor is Germany, and Germany has 9% of surplus of exports. So that's exporting a lot of unemployment. And huge part of unemployment is due to the euro area misalignment. And there is no other way, and that's the strategy followed by Hollande. In this context, if you keep the euro, there is no other way than to diminish the cost of labor. And that's the position of Hollande, that what he has implemented, subsidizing on the one hand business, on the other hand making labor market more flexible. And of course, people are just living with that, are resenting the effect of that. And they understand that, and that's the reason why a lot of them are against the
And has Marine Le Pen offered a referendum?
Yes, yes.
And Fillon?
No.
No. So basically she's the only, and Mélenchon?
No.
No.
Not, he has not been clear on that. Mélenchon, first step is to implement a new constitution, So we can expect that the European question will be in that. But
Cédric Durand, it's been great talking to you.
Thank you,
very
Tariq.
much.